It is time for episode 67 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. I'm talking about Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name is Derek M. Cook, the writer, host, and producer of this show. I will be joined by my lovely bride here in a little bit, Beth, because we're going to be talking about a movie that she was really excited about seeing, and so was I. However, before we get to all that, I want to let you know that the song that you're hearing right now is Califuria Nights. It's from the band the Urban Surf Kings. You can find it on their album Retro Sonic 2, Revenge of the Surf. You can find them on Bandcamp at reverbranch.bandcamp.com, or just go to urbansurfkings.com, or better yet, go to monsterkidradio.net and follow the link in the show notes. However you check them out, make sure you let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Bride. I've said the word bride repeatedly. We're going to say it a few more times because that's the movie we're talking about this week. We are actually looking at a new film. It's still in the theaters right now. It came out this year in 2026. We're talking about the film The Bride. Yeah, that's it. It's just called The Bride. And because it's here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio, because we're a bunch of monster kids, you know exactly which bride we're talking about. We're going to talk about that with Beth here in a little bit. Congratulations, by the way, to Jessie Buckley, who starred in the film, who just walked away with an Academy Award for another film. So yeah, we're talking about a movie here that's got Oscar-level talent in the cast. So we're going to talk about that as well here in a little bit. Of course, we've got Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review as well, talking about Ultraman Taro, talking about every single episode of every single Ultraman series. And, you know, I'm loving Ultraman Taro. I've been following along with Mark, watching the episodes as he talks about them, and this is probably one of my favorite Ultraman episodes, period. Not just Ultraman Taro, but in all of Ultraman Dumb. This is one of my favorite episodes because it's setting up so much and kind of exploring things a little bit more, and I'm going to let Mark tell you all about that here in a little bit. Now, before we move forward to talk about The Bride and you get this week's Beta Capsule review with Mark, I want to go back a week because Kenny did do a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland for the movie that Beth and I talked about last week, The Monster That Challenged the World. Why didn't I play it in last week's episode? Quite frankly, I just didn't get it, and I don't think that's Kenny's fault. I'm actually blaming the monster in the machine, that the Facebook Messenger message that Kenny sent me with the link to the segment didn't come through right away or got buried or whatever. It's not my fault, and it's certainly not Kenny's fault. Why don't we do that first? Then we're going to get to Mark, then we're going to get to Beth and the Bride and everything else right after this.
Volcanic fury of Vesuvius. From the ravaged city of Pompeii, across 2,000 years, comes one of the strangest mysteries of all time. The curse of the faceless man. The power of his love spanned the centuries, crossed the dividing line between yesterday and today, between the past and the present, even between life and death.
Only once did I risk the most distant glimpse of the grim and foreboding House of Usher. The mere sight of that awesome structure, huge and menacing, struck me chill with fear. It lay like a malignant sore that festered in the middle of the wasteland. Overhead, the clouds hung low, and a ghastly vapor rose from the ground. It seemed as if the roots of the house touched the very coals of hell. This was the House of Usher.
The history of the Ushers is a history of savage degradations, and always in this house, the house itself is evil now.
Edgar Allan Poe's spine-tingling The House of Usher with Vincent Price in chilling color and cinemascope. Poe's timeless The House of Usher.
Hello there, Bride of Monster Kid radio heads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Derek and Beth are talking about 1957's The Monster That Challenged the World. This giant monster classic was first mentioned in Famous Monsters number 1, in a compilation article about science fiction monsters. Here is what it said. The monster that challenged the world was a kind of thing-sized amphibious caterpillar, or super sea freak, that wormed its way out of a snail shell to raise audiences' hackles and induce that creepy, crawly feeling in people as it crawled along canals and over sides of ships. Considering it spawned 3,000 eggs when giving birth to offspring, it qualified as one of the most kill-worthy creatures of all time, for its babies, upon hatching, had voracious appetites. The monster itself was designed by the same artisan who created the great white whale in the Ray Bradbury version of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. The challenging monster received feature coverage with a 10-page article including 14 photos. These production notes were the highlights. The biggest and most ferocious monster ever built in Hollywood. That's how they ballyhooed the monster that challenged the world. Back in 1957, when, 10 years ago, it was co-billed with The Vampire. Chill Shocker, they called it. Tim Holt stars as Ogre Killer, a marauding, mangling atomic monster, crawling up from the depths to terrify and torture. A new kind of terror to numb the nerves. A giant mass of destruction. You've seen the others. Now see the greatest. A great deal of research and development went into the monster, said the co-producers. We hired an art director to draw 50 sketches of a sea beast. Then, when the proper horror was decided on, we had a sculptor create a model of the amazing animal. The proper horror? A combination of a giant snail and mollusk. The sculptor? One of Filmtown's top special effects masters, Augie Lohman. Lohman went to work to build not a model, not a miniature to be animated, but a mechanically operated monster, a full 11 feet tall. Remember Moby Dick, the great white whale and a whale of a tail brought to the screen by Ray Bradbury? Well, Moby was only 9 feet in all. The mollusk that challenged the world, even if he did it at a snail's pace, was 2 feet bigger. Have you ever wondered what monsters were made of? Not only on the outside, but their interiors? Well, this one had nearly 16,000 feet of wires inside, 3 miles of intricate wiring. The wires had to be worked by levers like auto shifts. And do you know how many men it took to work the wires? A crew of 5. What exactly would happen if such a mythical sea beast were to attack California? I asked myself, said the author of the screenplay, who amazingly enough was a woman. I asked the Pentagon, and they decided that if an oceanic monster threatened the world, or any part of it, the Navy would be in charge, since it arose from the sea. Originally, it was thought that the hero would be an Air Force officer, but Washington advised differently. Location was shot around the All-American Canal near El Centro, California. This is described as a fascinating series of waterways, and provided excellent dramatic backgrounds for the dragnet thrown up to catch the developing eggs before they reached, whoops, we're getting ahead of the story. How do you create the voice of such a monster? Much experimentation went into this phase of the picture, said the producers. We wanted something as terrifying vocally as the monster was visually. It was decided to use a blend of a high sound with a low tone. For the low tone, the growl of a puma protecting its young was recorded. This threatening animal sound of a great wild cat at bay is enough to raise the hackles on anyone's neck. But added to that, for the high sound, was the cry of a bittern. A bittern is a type of marsh bird which emits a particularly terrible gasping sound. When the gasp of the bittern and the growl of the puma were combined into a single sound, it was like nothing previously heard by the human ear. And it was a new note of fear. After that was a spoiler-filled synopsis. Here is a challenging highlight. By following huge slime trails left by the monsters' bodies, it is discovered that the krakens have headed for the Salton Sea canals. At one of these, an old gatekeeper at one of the locks shoos off some kids. Later at night, hearing noises, he thinks the young people have returned. Goes out, looks around, and falls victim to the hideous monster that rises up behind him. When his body is found, it is a dried shell. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next time. For BMKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
The Monster Bash convention is coming your way fast. It's the gathering of monster movie fans from all around the country with a film festival, guest movie and TV stars, and vendors of collectibles, plus writers and artists. The Monster Bash convention is June 12th through the 14th, 2026 at the Pittsburgh Marriott North. You can meet and chat with actor Gary Conway, the teenage Frankenstein, in movies from the 1950s. He also appeared in Land of the Giants, Burke's Law, and so much more. It's Butch Patrick from the original Munsters TV show. Get an autograph from this television icon. Daniel Roebuck will be there. Happy to meet you. He was Grandpa in the most recent Munsters movie and is one of the greatest memorabilia collectors in the world. Plus a director, writer, and producer of fantastic family films. Director and writer Jack Hill will appear. He was the last person to direct Boris Karloff in films, known for writing and directing the cult movie classic Spider Baby. Actress Beverly Washburn, a fan favorite, will appear at Monster Bash. She starred in Spider Baby, Disney's Old Yeller, Boris Karloff's Thriller TV show, Star Trek, and many more. Producer Bill Diamond will have a massive Muppet display as he worked on many Jim Henson projects and has original Muppets to showcase in an immersive setup. Plus, he's the man behind the documentary series on artist Basil Gogos of Famous Monsters magazine. And it doesn't stop there. Marriott McKnight, a former Miss America, will be at Monster Bash, along with Ohio TV legendary horror host Son of Ghoul, and low-budget monster movie maker David the Rock Nelson will perform a live magic show on stage. Film Fest, movie and TV stars, wall-to-wall collectible vendors. It's Monster Bash, June 12th through the 14th, 2026 at the Pittsburgh Marriott North. Go to the website to see so much more. monsterbash.us. That's monsterbash.us. It's where monster fans converge for the super expo of entertainment.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Taro, Episode 25, Burn, the Six Ultra Brothers. Original air date, September 21st, 1973. When we last saw Taro, he had returned to the Land of Light to rally the Ultra Brothers. That means Kotaro's absence at ZAT headquarters is notable, as the Defense Force struggles to keep up with reports of space moths causing extensive damage. Their attempt to defend a lighthouse fails, but helps them deduce that Kaiju Muraroa instinctively tries to destroy light sources, which the moths lead it to. Taro arrives at the Ultra Tower, where a brief history of the Land of Light is recounted, leading to the realization that the Ultra Brothers must obtain the Ultra Bell, a supernatural device of great peacekeeping power. To do this, the brothers must fuse into one figure, which they do, beginning the process of transporting the bell to Earth. At the same time, two of the orphaned Iwamori siblings go to fetch water, but one of them, named Ichiro, is hit by a van and taken to ZAT Hospital. Muraroa is attracted to an industrial zone which has left its lights on, prompting ZAT's response, which includes the deployment of an experimental time bomb. The Ultra Brothers arrive, and the tolling bell dispatches the darkness, but the plan hits a snag when ZAT member Ueno gets caught on Muraroa's hide. Burn, the 6 Ultra Brothers, resolves the tension of the previous episode while laying the groundwork for a great deal of storytelling yet to come. In this episode, we learn that Taro, and presumably most other Ultra beings, have relatively normal childhoods, going to school, enjoying summer breaks, and even owning pets. Viewers also learn the origin of the Land of Light, which includes a great war with aliens and kaiju. Perhaps most significantly, it's revealed that Ultras can fuse with one another when necessary, a concept that entire shows will eventually be built on, such as the 50th anniversary series Ultraman Orb. Incidentally, there is no surprise happy ending for the Iwamori children, whose parents died in the previous episode, except for the strength they've gained in working together, a bold choice that gives weight to the story. Tokusatsu fans will no doubt recognize the doctor who speaks to the Iwamori family. It's Ren Yamamoto, who had memorable roles in Ultra Q, Ultraman, and Ultra 7, as well as the original Godzilla and War of the Gargantuas, in which he is menaced by a giant octopus before trying to outswim green monster Gaira. For Bride of Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Warning! Godzilla vs. the Thing, a shattering motion picture not for the weak of heart. Here in all its astounding realism is a soul-shocking experience. How much terror can you stand? What was this thing of unbelievable and unequaled terror that challenged Godzilla to a battle of unhuman strength versus supernatural evil? Godzilla versus the Thing. See the war of the giants. See the birth of the world's most terrifying monster. See armies of the world destroyed by the Thing. The producers of Godzilla vs. the Thing issue warning to those who cannot take its full horror. To you with guts, you must see Godzilla vs. the Thing from the beginning in color scope from American International.
The one, the only, King of Monsters, brings you the demon of the atomic age. Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, 1970, carrying on the hideous experiments of his infamous ancestor.
In this stone sarcophagus, deep in the bowels of the earth, he buried his creature, his creation.
Frankenstein, 1970. In the hell pit of his centuries-old castle, he perverts the terrifying wonders of nuclear science.
This gets you some eyes.
To unleash a horror beyond all imagination.
What kind of dealings do you have with the director of the morgue? Are you interested in corpses?
Even the cyclotron, concealed in his subterranean vaults, cannot complete his foul creation, for which he must have throbbing vital organs transplanted from living beings.
Two people are missing, and I want to know why they haven't come back.
Mr. Rowe, I imagine, would have us suspect foul play.
Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, 1970.
This is Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned, and don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun 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 dun. Wow.
Well, one of us can stay in tune.
Oh. Well, we mentioned it at the top of the show. I mentioned it at the top of the show. And I mentioned it before this recording that there will be spoilers. Very important to note there will be spoilers because this is a relatively new film. It doesn't have the 50, 60 year window with a lot of the movies that we cover here on the show. So you have been warned. We're probably going to spoil a little bit of the movie.
But I think in terms of covering, part of what we do here is to create a love of classic monster movies.
Sure.
It's what you've done for me, really, in the last 5 years. I mean, I always liked the movies, but it wasn't a special interest of mine. I didn't understand the depth and the vast array of movies available and spin-offs and sequels, and I didn't understand the lineage as parts are handed from actor to actor, and even sometimes from like father to son, acting wise, that there's this whole legacy. And as monstrous characters go, I have a special place in my heart for a number of these actors, and so I really thought that this was going to be something special and something that's kind of unique in what we're seeing in the movies these days. So I'm really excited to cover The Bride.
The Bride 2026, starring Academy Award winners. Christian Bale won an award in 2010 for Best Supporting Actor, and as of this recording, freshly minted Oscar winner
Jessie Buckley. Way to go, girl.
Right, not for this, but for Hamnet?
For Hamnet, yes. I've not watched the entire movie yet. I have seen a few scenes, and I'm just amazed because the difference between these two performances is literally night and day.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about her coming into this. So
Irish actress.
Okay.
And not, I don't think super well known worldwide before some of her recent appearances here. So fantastic job to her and to all of the winners at the Oscars. I think there were some surprising results, and in fact some of the favorite things of mine from that are the performances, not even some of the awards. There were some great speeches by I think some really important people that appeared either the actors themselves or on behalf of them from across the country and the world, but really some of the performances, particularly the Sinner's performance, and as a former ballerina myself and someone who just underwent hip surgery, seeing Misty Copeland get up there a few months after a hip replacement and do that was amazing. And, props to her, and now I got to go work on my splits, but
wait till you're done with physical therapy.
Yeah. But no, I'm really excited to cover this. I think in some ways it gives us the story we never got from the 35 Bride of Frankenstein, because even though, of course, it's named that, so little of the movie is actually about her. She's more of a possession, a thing to be owned by the doctor and the monster, and she never really gets to do much of anything.
I would argue that it's not even her story, that she has almost no agency in the film.
Oh, I agree.
She is a prop.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, she's a prop. She's property.
She is, the titular character. it's an iconic look. It's an iconic character design. Thanks to Jack Pierce and Elsa for putting together an amazing performance and character makeup. But really the story is less about her and more about, when I look at it, I look at the original Bride of Frankenstein as kind of a subversive James Whale really kind of messing with the studio a little bit kind of tale about two men trying to create life without the benefit of a woman, knowing that James Whale was gay, and that sort of family unit being kind of subverted through this film. That's kind of how I look at Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, agreed. And really, what they're trying to create is more than just life. They're trying to create humanity.
Yeah.
The first Frankenstein creates life.
Yeah.
We've already got life. Life has been created, but what they've realized, and what you realize by the end when the mob's attacking and everything else, is that they don't see him as human. They don't create humanity. So the second one, by creating a woman, you're trying to create humanity. And I think the entire series of scenes with the monster and the old man and learning about what is friendship and what is love, and that is the creation of the humanity in the monster, not the electrifying of another series of body parts.
Sure.
But actually, ironically, the creation of the humanity in the original movie is not creating another being that's alive, but creating the humanity in the monster. In this movie, in The Bride 2026, or I should say The Bride, because there's an exclamation point. So it's like, Oliver, The Bride, 2026, you're now trying to create the humanity of his mate. And so I do see it in a way as a prolonged sequel, and in the setup of it, it's sort of set up as a long looked for sequel.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, and they reference briefly some things that could have come from the Universal films. This, I don't believe, is a Universal movie. So technically, it's not part of the canon or whatever. But at one point, Christian Bale, as the monster, is explaining he pulled the bolts out of his neck. That's why you don't see him.
Well, and you can see where the holes are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they go. I'm not.
Yeah.
My life is not up to somebody else anymore. Nobody's hooking me back up to things. And they don't. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say they don't bolt the bride.
No, they don't.
They make a point early on that he makes the point that he pulled them out of his neck. He didn't want to be looked at like that anymore. And they don't use that exact same process.
Right.
With the bride.
Which, is a throwback to the original film, the 35 film, in that it's not an obvious amalgamation of parts. Now, in The Bride, it's not an amalgamation at all. It is a corpse that they dig up and reanimate. Granted, in 35, you can see the stitch marks, but it's still much more feminine and less scarred and marked.
Yes.
Whereas in this one, there is some marking a little bit, but
the process leaves its marks, and I don't want to go too much into that. Although I will say it's not nearly as bloody of a movie as I thought it was going to be.
I actually was very surprised because I didn't even say on the show. I predicted that black stuff coming out of her mouth,
which is in the trailer, so there's no surprise there.
It was black in the trailer because they didn't want to make it red to get a
censorship.
A red band trailer. No, it's black in the film.
It stays black. It's the liquid is part of the scientific process of the blood. I won't say more than that, but and I kind of like that. I think it almost makes it more accessible to a range of audiences, and I think that maybe it wouldn't have otherwise. Here in the United States, we don't think anything of like a slasher movie having blood everywhere and violence everywhere. But in a lot of the world, that's actually what's censored is the violence. Like people can you can have a movie for 8-year-olds and people are running buck naked through the background and nobody cares. But if there's violence and particularly red blood on screen, it gets censored real fast. When I was an exchange student in Germany, so that's late high school, there were classmates that really had never seen violent movies at all because they were rated up to 16 and their parents didn't take them, and it just wasn't something that they did. And so I think in some ways it may allow the movie to be seen worldwide easier without cutting clips, which we've experienced living in other countries. So, and it's not that I don't know that in the movie we watched, it was a drinking scene when we were in a country that didn't allow alcohol. So when we were in Kuwait, but I don't know that that took a ton away from that movie. But I think in a lot of cases, I know I've seen movies in like the German cinema where things have been cut and it does change the movie a little bit. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, different countries have different rules and expectations. Like if it's obviously a fantastical,
right, then it can be allowed.
Like I remember reading years ago, it might have even been in a Film Threat magazine, if anybody remembers that, where Thelma and Louise got a harsher rating in Canada than the most recent Friday the 13th film, because Thelma and Louise was looked as realistic violence as opposed to Friday the 13th obviously being fantasy. You may be hearing some sounds in the background as our cat Wednesday once again wants to get some attention while we're recording. She's playing with a toy right now.
Something she doesn't normally do in front of us.
Absolutely not.
She's brought it over to play so that she can have attention. So Wednesday says hi, everyone.
Anyway, The Bride.
What do you think of The Bride being set in the 1930s, Chicago specifically, which I think is great for the aesthetic. The dark, dirty 1930s. I'm surprised we didn't meet Al Capone, if I'm perfectly honest.
We could have.
We're there, you know. We did see there a couple times in the background where we saw like a line for a soup kitchen.
Yep.
Soup being doled out. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
It really set it nicely in the space and it had that kind of gritty, dark city look of that time period, you know, pre-World War II, before the light came back. What do you think of the setting being the same time and in a way in a city that the original Frankenstein was set? I mean, you're in the 30s again.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay.
And tying it to the time period.
I thought it was an interesting choice. It definitely gave us an opportunity to see something different. I think there were a few moments throughout the film that it did take me out of the 30s aesthetic a little bit.
Okay.
There's is it a club where there's a band performing?
Yes.
That I felt like they're clearly not dressed like 1930s musicians. This is not, this is taking me out. And the drive-in movie theater they go to, the first drive-in movie theater was in 1932. So to have this random drive-in movie theater show up as a location towards the end of the film made me question a little bit about which year in the 30s are we? Did they say? And then once I start thinking that, it takes me out. But I'm chalking a lot of that up to style.
Sure. I don't know that they specifically said. I got the feeling based on a few things going on that they were later in the 30s. There were little comments made that made me feel like we were further along in the European fascism than...
True. That's true.
In a way that in 31 or 32 you wouldn't have heard expressed in that same way.
That's a good point. So the drive-in thing, and that's a me thing. That's not a movie.
And what I'll say on that is, it is early for one, but the places they're in, it's not entirely unlikely.
True, and it wasn't like what we think of as like a 1950s drive-in.
No.
It was basically a field with a bunch of cars lined up in front of a really big screen. And very outdoors.
And some loudspeakers.
Yeah.
Like they had out there instead of like the individual car speakers and all of that and stuff.
Exactly.
So it was very, what's the one where it's fancy but dwarves? Is that Art Nouveau or is that the other one? You know what I mean?
What are you talking about?
Stylistically in the 20s and 30s, it's like one of them, if it's fancy and it looks like elves made it, there's Art Nouveau and then there's like it's Art Deco. It's Art Deco, which is more 30s, which looks like dwarves made it.
Wow.
I do have a lot of Tolkien love in me. But if you look, Art Nouveau is all swirly and it looks like Rivendell, and Art Deco looks like something you find in the mines of Moria.
Okay.
Pre-Goblin era.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's what I think.
Wednesday agrees with me. Right, Wednesday?
But I did think the aesthetic was cool. I like that. I like that aesthetic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's definitely cool. And it gives you that retro sci-fi futurism kind of thing when it comes to the mad science scenes and how they're bringing her back and all that stuff, which I really liked as well. Because I liked that, again, that aesthetic for mad science. As much as I love Star Trek, even Starfleet Academy, the fact that it's all holograms and lights and everything else, give me switches, give me dials. I don't need...
Oh, yeah. Give me these big cathode tubes that are going to burst spectacularly.
Yes.
I do love that, and I'll talk about in a few minutes about my love for Annette Bening.
I didn't even realize that was her.
Oh,
I mean, submerged so deeply into that character.
I have been in love with Annette Bening, and I know this is not necessarily what anyone else is going to think of since The American President.
No.
That was my first, like, oh my gosh, I love this actress. I'm going to watch everything she does. She's amazing. I will say she and I have had similar looks before, particularly with the short red hair and stuff. But
rest in peace to the director of that, by the way, Rob Reiner.
Yes, beautiful tribute to Rob Reiner and his wife, and just really a lovely showing up of so many people that clearly loved them and clearly treasured not only the work that was created with them, but their time with them. And that's really special, I think, to be remembered that way and to really be remembered as someone that no one has a bad thing to say about. So I was really glad to see that. But yeah, Annette Bening and her laboratory and her just craziness
like I said,
this are just great. Like she has she's trying to do the like, I'm a scientist. Bleep it. Here we go.
Yeah. I had no, like I said, she was so submerged in her role. I had no idea it was her, none. And that I think is impressive because she is one of these people that you're like, oh yeah, that's Annette Bening. You know what I mean? She has such a look and presence. I didn't realize it was her at all. And I think that's a testament to just her characterization. She is the mad scientist. She is Dr. Euphronius, and she's phenomenal. She's really good. I thought the cast overall was really good.
Oh, I didn't know Penelope Cruz was going to be in it. She was great.
Neither did I. Didn't realize it was going to be her. I was wondering where Jake was going to show up, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh my gosh, they used him so well. I was worried it was going to be cheesy, but in a way, and it was a little, but it worked.
And this is where it really got me going. So it's directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
His sister.
It's convenient when your sister's directing so you can get a job. No, I'm kidding.
But Jake is in here and he's playing a Hollywood star. And we're looking at 1920s, 1930s Hollywood. I love Hollywood history. If I can find nothing but stories and movies set during historic Hollywood periods and then have monsters or mystery or something happen around it, I'm a happy dude. I love reading that stuff. And so we got a little bit of that in this, not a lot because it's not about him, but his movies are integral to the Frankenstein.
To be clear, he's playing an actor who dances and sings in movies.
He's a song and dance man.
He's a song and dance man. Some of our other characters really like his work.
Yeah.
To a slightly crazy degree.
Obsessive.
Yeah,
obsessive. And then he also, so we see his films, but then he also appears as a character.
Because he's a real person in that world and everything. I really appreciated that when he appeared in person, not on the film. On the film, it's all tuxedos and it's very Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers type stuff and everything. And he does it brilliantly, I will say. But he's very made up and make-upped and everything. When we see him, quote unquote, in person, he looks older. And I thought that was a lovely touch because some of these movies are from a few years back.
Yep.
So he's got the slight bits of gray over the ears, at the temples, and little and slight lines at his face. And so I thought that was really great that they did that to show the passage of time.
it also shows the kind of makeup they used in those movies back then.
Right.
And he's on screen in those movies, it's clearly caked on and in a different kind.
Also, then it was even like a lead-based makeup because they didn't know better yet.
But Christian Bale, too, was just phenomenal.
He did a phenomenal job of partnering Jesse Buckley for this. And kind of going back and touching on the Misty Copeland comment from earlier, in dancing, especially when you are the prima or one of the leads or something, it is all about the strength of your partner and the ability of them to help stabilize you and hold you in place and help you move across the floor and through the scenery without overshadowing you. And I think Christian Bale, who was I will admit, was one of my first crushes in like middle school. I mean, Newsies. How can you not want to go to Santa Fe after that? But he does a really great job, not just of playing the monster and playing it as someone who's been around way too long now, who's way too old for where he is, but he really supports his leading actress and really makes sure that the movie stays about her.
And it really is. And she appears in the film in a couple of different roles.
She does, and that's amazing too.
Throwback to the 35 Bride of Frankenstein. Jessie Buckley plays Mary Shelley in this.
Yeah.
And I was a little taken by her choice here too, because I remember when she first appears on screen as Mary Shelley and she starts telling us a story, I leaned over to you and said, "Who is that actress?" And you're like, "I don't know." Because she was
so different.
It's like, why are you impersonating Isabella Rossellini? What are you doing here? But she really kind of put off this, I'm not going to do the voice, but she put off this Isabella Rossellini vibe to me as Mary.
Yes.
And it does kind of allow for some of the stylistic things that happen in the film, because really this film is about Mary telling us a story.
Yeah.
And she's interacting.
She wants to tell.
And she's interacting with the characters as well, and sometimes talking to one of the characters and back and forth. In fact, at one point, the bride's even calling out, "Mary, Mary, what do I do?" You know. So it does lead to some opportunities for some stylistic diversions, like putting on the Ritz.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is a throwback to Young Frankenstein.
Right. I actually really liked that. I thought that was lovely.
It was lovely.
If you have to pick a song, that was a great choice.
It was so adorable. And it didn't do it like Young Frankenstein. It was done as a serious dance number. Yeah. Yes, the monsters dance.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And then I'm not going to say what it is, but the closing song, not from the 30s, but Perfect Choice.
Yes.
Perfect choice.
What did you think about the interweaving of different stories in this?
So,
because we definitely get a few different American tales, if you will.
There are a couple of different things happening here. And that's, if I had to have any complaints about this story, about this film, is that sometimes the story does kind of meander into some other characters' tales that I don't necessarily think were as well fleshed out. I mean, there's enough there for context clues to understand what's going on, but there are a few things that I felt like were a little tacked on. That said, there's a lot, like there's women's lib and feminism and women's roles in the professional workplace and the power of women in society that we are getting through some of these other characters' tales that we aren't necessarily getting with Lonely Frankenstein Monster Once a Bride.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting. I think I just wanted a little bit more, but then I also felt like the movie was a little long, because I don't know how you would have done that without making it longer. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree with all of that.
But I really liked it. I mean, Maggie's husband, Peter Sarsgaard, and Penelope Cruz are a couple of cops on the trail of the monsters who, because they're monsters, are leaving some corpses behind.
I liked, and I won't get into details because I don't want to spoil things, but I enjoyed the way that the police force as a whole, particularly it being 1930s Chicago, was portrayed in that we get quite a few officers throughout and street cops and stuff throughout the different scenes because there's mayhem. It's a monster movie, you know. A lot of them are corrupt. There's corruption in the police department, which we know there was. We know there was in 1930s Chicago. That's just, people were being paid by the mob and stuff.
Even at the end, when they're trying to do the last mobster, give him a head start and then go after him.
Yeah.
It's like, dude.
Give him a head start. What are you doing? Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a mobster story in here too. And I kind of like that too. I wanted more of that, but then again, I felt the movie was a little long. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I wanted more, but at what cost would that come from? I don't know. I enjoyed it though. And I'm not saying I didn't like it. I just wanted more from that part of the story too. And maybe get interweaved a little bit more.
Okay.
With the monster tale.
I felt a little conflicted in that we went several different places in this movie. We kind of drove around the whole
Chicago,
northwest corner of the country, if you will, if you divide the U.S. in 4 parts.
Northwest or northeast?
Or northeast.
Yeah.
The northeast.
Yeah.
Because they would go over from Chicago to New York, and I think they were in Indiana, driving through Indiana at one point.
Yeah.
And not just New York City. I mean, you're talking about Niagara Falls and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch when they hit on Niagara Falls. There's all these couples that are getting married because it's the 30s, and that's what people did. They went out to Niagara Falls,
Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls. One of the scenes one of the scenery or sets that I really enjoyed was like an old swimming pool that had been abandoned that they were hanging out at. They take refuge there basically at one point, and they're sleeping there a few nights or whatever. And it's the old extravagantly tiled pool, inside, because it's in the city there, and you can tell that at some point, early 20s probably, this was a really extravagant place that rich people came. And now nobody even goes there. They have to hide out there because it's derelict and destroyed, and nobody goes there. But it was such a neat location that really set the time period with the tiles and the shape of the building and all the construction style.
The cinematography and the production, the set design, it all looked really cool. It was really neat. So yeah, to kind of go back to that swimming pool location, that was kind of their lair where they were hanging out. As they're walking through the streets of Chicago, all of it just has a really cool aesthetically pleasing look that felt rooted in this ideal of 1930s Chicago.
I think Maggie Gyllenhaal does a great job of creating her world.
Yes.
And inviting you into it.
The world building was phenomenal.
The world building is just really, really great. One of the other things, and this might just be my take on it, but I know I have unusual takes on movies sometimes. I think she did something interesting with the perspective. When you start the movie, it very much feels like you have Mary Shelley saying, okay, this is a story I want to tell.
Yeah.
I know what story you've heard. This is the story I want to tell. And she starts by speaking in Mary's voice, but throughout the movie, the perspective continually shifts back and forth between Mary watching, even sort of from a distance sometimes, what's going on and controlling it, over to Frank's point of view, the monster's point of view. And so there's this weird hallucinating back and forth between what he sees is going on and what's really going on.
That's true. That's right. Because there's a few times when he's like in the movie theater, just kind of being alone, watching the movie, and he starts imagining himself on screen with Jake.
He's a background dancer in this number, or he is Jake's character in a number. And you see that, but you also see, especially in some of the higher energy situations, he's not always seeing what's really happening.
Yeah.
He's playing out a fantasy in his head.
Well, and that's interesting you say that, because there's a good chunk of the movie where he's building a fantasy for her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't remember who she was before she became a corpse. And there's this, I kept thinking about the Kurt Russell Goldie Hawn movie Overboard.
Yeah.
Where he's telling her, well, we had this wedding and we did this and we did that. And on the one hand, why are you gaslighting her, dude? You want her to be in love with you. Don't lie to her. Don't build this relationship on this. And she eventually figures it out and understands who she really is on her own. Which I'm glad that she had that moment, that we were able to get over the gaslighting moment. But yeah, it's interesting that you say that because he's building this fantasy about, well, your real name is Penelope and this is all this stuff. Come on. You know, you're building this fantasy as well, maybe inspired by a movie or two that you saw. And that's his context, his way of processing the world and explaining the world to her. Really cool. Okay. I think I went into this a little colder than you did, or you did before we started recording. And I do feel like Jessie Buckley is all over the place in this. And sometimes most of the time it's great. It's like they wound her up and said, okay, go do your thing. And didn't even give her any, she's just all over the map. Because there's points where she just starts ranting and words just start flowing. And yeah, they all make sense, but let somebody else, take a breath, let somebody else talk. But it is her story, so let her talk. The bride hasn't spoken in 70, 80 years, like this, so go.
In a way, she's never been allowed to speak like this.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I know there are other versions of Frankenstein cinematically. I think there's even one called The Bride with Sting.
Okay.
The singer, not the wrestler. Right. Although the one with the wrestler, I'd like to see. Oh God, that would be amazing. Anyway, and I've never seen that one, but I think it's Jennifer Beals? I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was a great film. People walked out.
Yeah, people behind us walked out.
It was weird. I had read it on Reddit that this had happened in some other places, but like the first few minutes, they sat there longer for the trailers and the previews than what they did for the film.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. And there wasn't even anything offensive on the screen happening. It wasn't a violent scene.
There weren't any particularly great trailers, so I don't think they were doing the Phantom Menace thing and just watching the trailer.
Well, yeah, it was Meet Joe Black, right? Yeah, we could go see that, just see the Star Wars trailer and then leave. No, it wasn't even that. It's just they got up and left, and there's like maybe 4 other people in the theater top. Well, no, 4 total.
Yeah.
Us 2, somebody in front of us and somebody behind. They're all us.
I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a great prompt to writers and movie studios that we need more monster movies.
We need more monster movies. It does earn its R rating, so be aware of that. But we do need more monster movies. And we did see a trailer for The Mummy that does expand a little bit more of what we've seen so far. Still don't know how Egyptian mummy it looks, but we did get more. So we'll see. Last thoughts, final thoughts?
If it's still playing where you are, I would go see The Bride. I think it's a fun one, and I think it's one you'll enjoy seeing on a big screen.
I think the movie's going to get a little bit of an Oscar bump because of Jessie Buckley. Well-deserved. I assume. I don't know. I haven't seen Hamnet, but I would be surprised if this one doesn't get nominated for some sort of Oscar, even if it's just cinematography or costuming or something. As long as people remember it, because it's awfully early in award season right now.
Sure.
But it's good. I enjoyed it. I'm glad we went to see it. And I'm also glad that Frankenstein won a bunch of Oscars as well.
Yeah.
Go Guillermo
del Toro.
That guy, GDT. Seriously, folks, I recommend The Bride quite a bit. As I mentioned to Beth, I was a little less hot about it than she was until we started talking about it. And, well, her enthusiasm is infectious. And really, when you kind of stop to think about the movie, there are so many things that we didn't even touch on. I started to get there a little bit when we were talking about feminism and women's right to work and that sort of thing. And there's some gangster stuff going on. There's some really interesting things happening in this movie. I think that this film turns The Bride of Frankenstein, the iconic character type, knowing full well that The Bride of Frankenstein, the 35 film, and then The Bride with Sting, the singer, not the wrestler, and, also contribute to the trope of the Monster's Bride character. We did, of course, get a little bit of this in Del Toro's Frankenstein film. We've seen it in Kenneth Branagh's, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We do see the Bride of Frankenstein turn up in a lot. I think in this film, this really reclaims the character, and really just makes her just as vital as the Frankenstein monster character himself, itself, whatever you want to call it. I really enjoyed it. The movie is a little bit of a hot mess, but I think that's a stylistic choice. And I think if you go into it knowing that you're about to get bombarded with some crazy performances, some incredible stylistic decisions, some great cinematography, and a couple of heck of a performances from the cast, you're going to have a good time. I would love to know what you thought of The Bride. I know Beth would like to hear that as well. So if you've seen it, give us a call at 360-524-2484, and we'll include your thoughts in an upcoming episode of the podcast, or you can just email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Now, this information is available on our website over at monsterkidradio.net, which is the homepage for everything that we do here on the show. You're going to find our contact information. You're going to find links to our various social media outlets. You're going to find everything you need, including that Amazon affiliate link that we ask you to use anytime you shop on Amazon, because it helps us out. We really, really appreciate that. Also, across the top of the page, those cartoon figures that we've been using and our artwork for Monster Kid Radio and Bride of Monster Kid Radio, the Frankenstein's Monster, the Gill Man, the Wolfman, and so on, all listening to a podcast, listening to something with earphones. Well, that artwork was done by artist Sterling Denham, and I just want to give a shout out to Sterling. I don't think they listen to the show on a regular basis, but huge shout out to Sterling for doing something incredibly awesome and brave, and just want to give Sterling all kinds of love from us Monster Kids here. So huge shout out to Sterling. Back to the website. You're going to see the show notes for this week's episode right there. That's the only place you're going to see them for a couple of days. Later on this week, on Wednesday or Thursday, I typically go to all the various social media outlets that we're active on, Facebook, X, Instagram, that sort of thing. And I announce the show notes there as well, and just kind of remind people that the new episode is out. But over on Patreon at patreon.com/monsterkidradio, not only do you get the show notes, but you get to find out what's coming up on the next episode of the podcast. You can actually join our Patreon for free. Just becoming a free member gets you access to this information. Of course, if you become a paying member, that helps us out too. But if you follow us on Patreon, you're going to find out what the next episode is about. So you'll be ahead of the game. So head over there and join us over on Patreon as well. Also, keep an eye on our website, deathdesigns.bigcartel.com. I just ordered a new prototype of a new shirt design that I'm really excited about. As soon as it gets here and I get a chance to try it on and, test it out, maybe I'll even take some pictures and post them on the website. I think y'all are going to dig it. The one person that I've shown it to so far, outside of Beth, thinks it's pretty cool as well. Who's that person? Well, that would be Jeff from Podcastcadia, our executive producer. Make sure you check out what he's up to over at podcastcadia.com. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Califuria Nights is copyright 2026, Urban Surf Kings. You can find it over on their album Retrosonic 2 Revenge of the Surf, which is available over at reverbranch.bandcamp.com, or head over to urbansurfkings.com and follow the links over there, or just follow the links in the show notes over at monsterkidradio.net. Check it out. Check out all of their stuff and let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.